During the next half hour, we're going to study South Carolina's Voices of Agriculture and talk with state and agricultural leaders across South Carolina. We'll examine how articulate our voice is as an industry, what we can do to better amplify that voice, and what those leaders see for the future of agriculture in South Carolina. All that and more coming up when Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture continues. Hello and welcome back to South Carolina's installment of Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. During this South Carolina installment of the program, we'll talk with state agribusiness and political leaders about the voice of agriculture in South Carolina, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, and what role Farm Bureau plays in the status of agriculture in South Carolina. We'll hear from South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the President of the South Carolina Farm Bureau Federation. We'll share some interviews with you that were conducted over the past few years as a means of establishing the steady path that agriculture has taken during that time. Agribusiness, including farms and forestry, is the #1 economic engine in South Carolina, generating an annual income of $34 billion to the state's economy and adding 200,000 jobs. The consensus from leaders we spoke with is that agribusiness in South Carolina is doing well and about to take off to even greater heights, something one leader calls a magic moment for agriculture.
I shudder to think what life would be like without Farm Bureau in South Carolina and in the United States. Time and time again, I've had people say, we really appreciate what Farm Bureau does. Who else would do it? Who out there can carry that message? And there is no one.
South Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture Hugh Weathers, an elected state constitutional officer and dairyman, agrees with the position of Farm Bureau as a messenger for agriculture.
From the chair I sit in now, we would not be where we are in 2011 if it were not for the progress of the ability to communicate a message by Farm Bureau. Still seen as the grassroots voice of South Carolina farming, and a recognition of the financial burden of running for or holding an office and participating in that. Might as well just, it doesn't gain favor, doesn't it? It's just a simple recognition of what the folks in the General Assembly or for the Office of Governor or Commissioner of Agriculture give of themselves to do this, and participating in that sends a pretty strong message and maybe allows the other messages to get through a little better than they might otherwise.
In years past, the voice of agribusiness in South Carolina, as in other places around the country, was often divided by commodity and special interest groups, singing their own solos, if you will. One voice often working against the other for prestige, power, and regulatory favor. That was something noted in a previous interview with South Carolina farmer and billionaire philanthropist Darla Moore, who founded the Palmetto Institute. The Institute hosted a number of agricultural summits designed to move policymakers and farmers in the same direction towards a promising future for agriculture.
We've got to pull the whole agribusiness sector together and work on a uniform strategy and get everybody pulling the same wagon. This is not something that's going to be done in a vacuum. It's going to be done at a very high policy level, and I think it'll be done at statewide policy levels.
Another interview we pulled off the shelf is with Senate Ag Committee Chairman Danny Verdon, who runs a feed, seed, and garden supply store in rural South Carolina. His vision for agribusiness is just as strong today as it was the day we talked to him outside his Lawrence County store.
If you think of this bountiful land and our bountiful resources, and so much of it being given to production and even production agriculture, you've got to believe that we must maintain our commitment in South Carolina to safeguarding and even enhancing the ability of a landowner, whether it be in private property rights protection or whether it be in good, sound environmental land use policies. We have got to maintain, it's incumbent upon the public sector, the General Assembly in particular, to safeguard those agricultural issues and agricultural rights.
State Representative and Chairman of the House Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Environmental Affairs Committee, Nelson Hardwick, grew up on his family's farm along South Carolina's coast. He knows the challenge of trying to stay ahead of the game.
You got to stay up with the times and technology, and they're trying to do that, and production's up from where it was because of good work by a lot of people around the state. Clemson University with some of the experimental stuff they've done, and we just need to remind people, where it comes from.
In addition to the South Carolina Farm Bureau Federation, another group that gives volume and consistency to the voice of agriculture is the Palmetto Agribusiness Council, or PABC, headed by longtime business executive Kathy Novinger.
We didn't want to be the only voice, but we wanted to orchestrate the single messages, and we've done that. And because of that, I don't think Michael Porter, when he came to the state and said, let's look at the state clusters, let's look at the automobile industry, let's look at tourism, had we not already had PABC formed and the mechanisms in place to get his attention, I don't think he would have recognized an agribusiness cluster. And so I think we've been able to get into doors, into back rooms of economic development, if you will, where we were never around the table before. And that's paying huge dividends for us.
Stay tuned, because when Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture continues, we'll learn about a new partnership between agriculture and the Department of Commerce. We'll hear from South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, and we'll share some tips for the individual voice to be heard by policymakers. We'll also introduce you to South Carolina's only full-time farmer in the General Assembly. All that and more when we return. Welcome back to South Carolina's installment of Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall. We're talking about the voice of agriculture today as we hear from a number of agribusiness and political leaders across the state about where we've been, where we are, and where agriculture is headed in the future in South Carolina. Known as the South Carolina Department of Agriculture and Commerce back in the early 1900s, the commerce function was eventually transferred to another state agency. Now, state leaders recognize the value of working together again. The Department of Commerce has added a staff position to work exclusively on recruiting agribusiness to South Carolina. Commissioner Weathers explains.
We signed a memorandum of understanding with the Commerce Department to put those things into place, to actually go out now and look for a professional to come in on staff at Commerce, but in effect answering to agriculture. And we'll get an army, I guess, of people to engage with this person, because in these ramping up phase, it's going to be important that the person understands what's expected and that he or she can get input on, is this right, are we on the mark? So yeah, it's a pretty big step. A lot of people went into making this happen, a lot of people's work.
In the past, South Carolina agriculture never had much of a cheering section in the halls of government. Budget increases were hard fought, if not ignored, and few recognized the value and worth of the agribusiness community. Thanks to efforts of David Winkles and the South Carolina Farm Bureau, the Palmetto Agribusiness Council, and others, state leaders now understand and respect the role agriculture plays in the state. That includes South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who's from the largest ag-producing county in the state. She has a deep appreciation for the history and the future of agriculture.
We are no longer just saying we are an agriculture state. We're now looking to say, how do we move it up a notch? What are we going to do to get those really highly technical agriculture jobs in here? What are we going to do to recruit more? And we're doing a lot of things. We're getting our Commissioner of Agriculture, Hugh Weathers, is now putting somebody in with the Department of Commerce so that we can actually bring more in to help the agriculture community that's already here, but introduce our new younger generation that agriculture is going to continue to be the strongest industry we have in South Carolina.
Not only is Commissioner Weathers establishing a new relationship with the Department of Commerce, he has also set a goal to more than double the agribusiness economic impact in the state by the year 2020.
couple of years ago, we announced this 50 by 20 goal. It says by the year 2020, can all of what agribusiness does, counting forestry, have a $50 billion impact on our economy? Well, it's nice to lay out goals, but you got to put boots on the ground, you got to execute. So what we've done this year, we put an emphasis on recruitment of agribusinesses in South Carolina so we can get more value added, not just touch the crop once, send it off somewhere else, and it comes back in a can or a box for us. So to do that, one of those execution steps, boots on the ground, is to get a person, a professional, looking just for agribusiness opportunities. The next Heinz Foods that came to Florence County, but probably for location. When the next one comes along, we want to integrate that into the agricultural resources in South Carolina to have a greater agricultural footprint.
And as we've mentioned, that larger agricultural footprint in South Carolina is made by many groups working together to tell the farm story. That's the major mission of the South Carolina Farm Bureau Federation, as David Winkles explains.
But the mission is very simple, and that's to be an advocate for agriculture and rural lifestyles, because that's what Farm Bureau has always been about. The rural area parts of the state and our rural-based agriculture. From the standpoint of a voice of agriculture, you know, that's got a wide variety of meanings too. Exactly what is that? What does it mean? And you know, to me it means helping people understand in a way that they can comprehend what we're talking about. And you know, we're talking about the most abundant, safest, most available food supply in the entire world.
State leaders like House Speaker Bobby Harrell take Farm Bureau's message seriously.
I mean, you've got good folks who are coming in on a regular basis and talking to us, and they know their stuff. They know the business. They understand farming because they are farmers. I mean, you've got very, very good people who have very good relationships. You also have people on both sides of the aisle, and that's important. I mean, you got Republicans and Democrats. Let me say that differently. You got Republican-leaning people and Democratic-leaning people representing the industry coming to Columbia to talk to us, and you need both, and Farm Bureau provides that.
Another person who takes agriculture's message seriously is South Carolina's only full-time farmer in the General Assembly, Representative Harry Ott. We'll hear from him as we visit with our farmer outstanding in the field when Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture continues.
I'm Harry Ott. I live in Calhoun County. I've been here all my life. I'm very fortunate to be in agriculture. I grow 2,200 acres of cotton, corn, and peanuts. I'm also the minority leader and a member of the General Assembly in South Carolina. I live right here in Calhoun County. Been here all my life. When I graduated from Clemson, I came back and I originally started out as a school teacher. After a few years of being a school teacher and doing some part-time farming, I knew that I really wanted to be a full-time farmer. When I quit teaching school and started farming, I still had a real passion for public education. I had served 12 years on the school board while I was farming, and then it kind of led into me wanting to do something other than school board work, so I decided to take a shot at becoming a member of the General Assembly. So I was fortunate enough to have been elected over the last 14 years, and to the best of my knowledge, I am now the only full-time farmer in the South Carolina General Assembly. I sure wish I could get a few more farmers to come and join me, because we need a voice of agriculture. Farm Bureau does a great job being the lobbying effort for agriculture in the state of South Carolina. I've always enjoyed being on the farm. Can't imagine being anywhere other than the farm. I think farming has a great future. I think young people looking at an opportunity to get into farming should really consider it. You know, let's face it, without food on the table, everything else is kind of secondary. So I believe the future of agriculture is very important and is very bright for upcoming generations.
Hello and welcome back to South Carolina's installment of Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall. We're talking today about the strength of the voice of agriculture in South Carolina. We know that the state's largest business or industry is agribusiness, which includes farms and forestry. It's the state's largest and still growing economic engine. Ag leaders are behind a move in South Carolina to increase the agribusiness economy from its $34 billion a year impact to $50 billion a year by the year 2020. South Carolina President Pro Tem and Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Glenn McConnell paints a positive image of agriculture.
I see the farming community is one of the underpinnings of a stable future, a stable currency, and a stable economy. I consider it very important in that light.
The economy of South Carolina is a composite of the mix of industries that we have within the state. Okay? Agriculture happens to be historically the most powerful one, but also ironically is going to be, in my opinion, one of the most powerful economic engines of this state in the future.
When our voice speaks now, it's louder, our voice is stronger, and there are more of us carrying the message. I know we've worked with the South Carolina State Chamber, and we now have an agribusiness committee there. So we're part of their competitiveness agenda. So we're just like manufacturing, we're just like other folks, you know, we're a business too.
There's a magic moment for this next 5 to 10 years, and we think it has to do with South Carolina, the growth of local food, the growth of energy crops, getting more engaged in exporting through our port and things of that nature, plus this recruiting of new businesses to use our products here. So I think a magic moment is staring us in the face.
And while we focused most of our program today on the voice of agriculture from the perspective of state and political leaders, each is very clear to claim just how essential, how vital it is for individuals to express their voice.
It is important for people to understand the power of their voice and to be involved in their government from the local level all the way up to the federal level. Now more than ever, we want to really show the impact of agriculture. The only way we can do that is to let all of the elected officials know that people still care, people are still involved, and we want to know what we're going to do to step it up.
You know, our policies are formed once a year through our grassroots, but we have to be able to work on a year-round basis. And one of the things that we've tried to do, that I've tried to emphasize, is that we have our county folks meet with their legislators at the local level. You know, our lobbyists are good, our representatives over there are good, but at the end of the day, it takes a constituent telling a member, this is what I want to see you do, and can you explain to me why you feel the way you do?
I want to know that the person, number one, understands the issue they're writing to me about. Number two, cares passionately about the issue that they're writing to me about. And if they add a personal story as it relates to them, it's that much better.
When there's a person from home taking the time, in this case, getting off the tractor, don't have to get off the tractor now with cell phones, do we? But taking the time to engage in the issue so that senator, representative, governor, commissioner, whoever, hears how it hits home in Williamsburg County, Orangeburg County, Oconee County, you still can't beat that. Combined with professionals up front really laying the foundation, but when it's time to close the deal, there is no better voice than that coming from home, because the sincerity is unquestioned.
As we bring this installment to a close, we want to share a few specific observations with you that these leaders made about Farm Bureau, starting with Farm Bureau President David Winkles.
We're recognized statewide as the #1 lobbying group in the state. And we do that with fairly meager resources. Now, I think some of our members would look and say, wow, you spend that much? But, I look at what a major telecommunications company would spend, or I look at what individuals would pay a lobbying group to lobby a specific issue. And, our lobbying budget is very modest compared to that. And, again, I think we're one of the most effective groups. And I think we're effective because we have people over there on a day-to-day basis, people who our members of the General Assembly trust. And that's one of the things I've always been very adamant, is that we always tell not a stretched version of the truth, but the truth. In that, here's what we would like to see, here's our opinion, here's what other people may tell you, and here's why that's not quite applicable to this situation. And I think we're respected for that, if nothing else.
It helps me to hear from one voice that's speaking what a number of people believe, or what a number of people think ought to happen. But it's much, much, much more important to those voices, because they can't all get to all the legislators to talk to them, because they're out there growing their crops and they're out there trying to make a living and raising their kids, and they don't want to spend their time in Columbia making the case for their whatever it is that matters to them. That's why it is critically important to those small business owners, and that's what I call them, who are the farmers, to make sure that they have somebody, some group, Farm Bureau, as a voice that will come to Columbia and make sure that we understand what issues matter to them.
I'd hate to think what it would be like if we didn't have it. If we didn't have the leadership of Farm Bureau and that strong lobbying team that President Winkles has been able to put together, and the PR support over there, what we get, the support out of the Department of Agriculture, what we're getting now of the state chain. I can't imagine if we didn't have a voice. When we go to Washington now, we meet with the senators and the representatives up there. They know who we are. They know the study. They know the numbers. They know the $34 billion. Yeah, Kathy, okay, $34 billion industry, we understand, 200,000 jobs. Now what do you want? So the message is out there, and I can't imagine trying to accomplish the things we've got on our agenda now if we didn't have it.
We love Farm Bureau, and the reason is it's that community connection. It allows every part of South Carolina to connect in with state government. It lets us know what the voices of the people are when we want to know, but it also lets us communicate back on what we're working on. It's that communication that keeps us moving agriculture in the right direction and not in the wrong direction. So we value the Farm Bureau as a great part of government, but also a great part of our citizens across the state that keep that communication open.
So when you see something about ag, pay attention, and just every night when you kneel and pray, thank God for farmers.
Yes, indeed. Thank God for farmers who keep us fed, clothed, and sheltered. Well, that's all the time we have for South Carolina's installment of Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. If you're a member of Farm Bureau in your state, thank you very much. If you're not, we invite you to log on to the website fb.org. That's the American Farm Bureau's website, and there you'll find a link to any one of 51 chapters of Farm Bureau across the country and in Puerto Rico. Learn more about us and how you can make your voice count in favor of agriculture in your state. Until next time, I'm your host, Reggie Hall.